It's going on 50 years. Can you imagine back in the mid-60s, the elements that came together that eventually turned into war? I mean, tell us about your earliest recollections and what music growing up really excited you to want to do this.
Oh man, listening to James Brown, Ray Charles, people like Bobby Darin, you know, Charlie Pride. I mean, all genres of music. What's her name? Nina Simone. I have to, you know, and the Fania All-Stars, you know, out of New York. I mean, just a combination of everything just made me love music. A lot of gospel music, Mahalia Jackson, and I mean, the list goes on. Jimmy Smith, organ, and basically all these people that I'm mentioning, they all did one thing that I loved a lot of back then, and that was classical jazz. You know, and I love classical music too, so don't get me wrong. I love Beethoven and Debussy. Some say Debussy, I say Debussy. You know, Bach, and the list goes on. But classical music from those old black and white movies, man, like Laura, Emily. You know, I mean, the list goes on with the movies, man. Venus. And I was a part of that. Now I can watch Turner Classic, watch them all over again and see where the music actually came from, you know.
So when you hear one of those or watch one of those, to take you back to where you were in life, is it kind of a bookmark of what you were doing?
Yeah, it was the beginning of a chapter for me, because that's I used to stay up late at night watching TV, man, just sitting under the television. It was black and white then.
Yes.
And every musical by MGM production, you know, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, Gene Kelly, I mean, the list goes on. Carmen Miranda, yeah. I mean, it just went on, and I was just totally inspired by the music, totally inspired. Melodies, man.
Yeah.
You know, that's what did it for me.
So you got with some players in the mix here, and you kind of had a musical spark. You guys kind of had common appreciation for music that stretched out a little bit. And
well, everybody brought something different to the table, and that's what made it unique. You know, and you know, it was just a combination of like a different planets. Everyone just bought different materials from the planets into one big pile, you know, and not knowing what was going to come out of it, but you know, it was all an experience for us, and well, actually an experiment. Like Jimi Hendrix used to say, "Are you experienced?" Yeah, well, we were.
Tell us about the first song that actually became a war song that you worked on. Tell us about how that came together.
Our first song was "Spill the Wine." We were Eric Burden and War band.
Now, how did that collaboration with Eric come about?
Eric was looking for a band at the time, a new band. He had, you know, left the Animals far and beyond, way back then, and he went through 2 other bands, and it just wasn't happening, obviously. But when he saw us, it was love at first sight. He couldn't believe his ears. We were playing everything under the sun, you know.
Yeah.
And he just said, "That's my band." We were playing blues like no other, because our blues was generally jazz and blues combined. You know, it was hardcore blues, but we would go into maybe a Jimmy Smith ride or some Ma Jamal or Ramsey Lewis, you know, and then we would go back to Jimmy Reed or Bobby Blue Bland, you know, or something. So we, you know, we had it going on then. Eric loved it and just said, "Hey, man, I'm taking you guys on the road with me," and that's what we did. We went on the road first, then we went into the studio, started recording.
All right.
You know, but we actually had the track for "Spill the Wine" already made. You know, because Eric and I used to always sit under the piano at the house, and we had this little groove thing, and we figured we should take this into the studio. I'm not going to get into that story because that's something totally different. that involved some other entertainers that I don't even want to talk about. That goes in my book. But in the studio, that's when we started coming up with the song Spill the Wine, because of me accidentally spilling wine in the recording board at Wally Hyder's. Yeah, and we were right next door. We were in Studio A, right next door to Shelley Manhole Jazz Club. And you can hear jazz coming through the walls. As a matter of fact, that night, I think was Monty Alexander on the piano next door. And you could hear it. And if you ever listen to the record Spill the Wine and you hear any leakage in there, that would be Monty Alexander. Yeah.
No
or MJQ, because they were all, it was Monty Alexander and MJQ. So whichever one was playing, you'll hear it.
So this music was vibrating through the whole building.
Through the whole building. Man.
Amazing. Now, what was that like with freeform radio and everything, to just hear a song explode, and radio was so vibrant with DJs that played whatever they wanted? You know, there was such a wide variety of music. You know, you'd hear that right alongside, you know, the bands from England, and then something from up the street here in Hollywood. What was that like back then? What was your best memories of it?
Well, it was amazing for me. It was pretty much kind of weird, because I didn't think we belonged. Our music was a little bit too different than what was really going on the radio, and I just didn't think that anyone was going to really like it. And I mean, we did have a hard time trying to get on the radio. Very hard time, because it was just too different.
Yeah.
The radio was used to hearing a certain format, and ours just didn't fit. But we twisted some arms and got it on there. And basically we let the people choose.
Of course.
So that's how we gathered up our fans, you know, and that's why I say that you know, they are my Rock and Roll Hall of Fans. You know,
man, they are. I
don't need a trophy. They are. When I see those smiling faces on stage, man, that's my Rock and Roll Hall.
Now, obviously, you had to make that transition as Eric continues to go do his thing. Now, War stands on its own. What was that feeling like? Where now we got to prove we can do this without his voice.
Well, it really didn't faze us, because we were always a strong unit without any background singers. Back in the early days, we were used to always singing or playing behind a singer anyway. You know, so that was nothing different.
Change a singer.
Yeah, when Eric came in, it was just another singer we were playing behind. Except the difference with him is that we were able to get creative and create our own music using our own style. So we weren't playing Wilson Pickett or James Brown or Otis Redding or Elvis Presley. We weren't doing that, or the Everly Brothers. We were actually creating our own. You know, that was the difference. So when he left, we still had enough songs to take in the studio ourselves. He pretty much, I take my hat off to Eric. He pretty much gave us that that learning school of how to perform in front of people of his genre, you know, in the rock and roll scene, because we were just playing nightclubs, holding the walls. So he taught us a lot about performing and how to pretty much get creative, like making a movie on stage. And that's how we ended up actually creating our music, is thinking of a movie or an existing show like the Cisco Kid. Now it's all about movies, man, and stories.
Now the music has always been such a hybrid, and I guess you always encourage that the melting pot was vibrant with every possible style.
Universal Street. That's what it was. Our music, it still is universal street music. You know, of all genres mixed into one big salad bowl. And that's what we have. And speaking of Universal, now we're on Universal.
Yeah.
Universal Records. So it's always been about the universe with us. You know?
Sure. Now, coming out with a song like Lowrider in not only a Southern California culture that's built on the appreciation of cars and rock and roll, you know, what does that song mean to you, to be such a soundtrack, to be used in such an iconic movie as Up in Smoke? or you know the soundtrack that's provided. What does Lowrider mean to you?
and the list goes on.
Yeah.
It means exactly what it is, lowriding. It means it's about your car, your personal vehicle. Before cars go out of style, that song will always exist for people in their personal cars. You know.
That's obviously brought you such love from the Hispanic community. Hispanic community is a very big supporter, you know, obviously with the Lowriders and everything. Yeah. Talk about how that Latin population of not only California but America, that growth has kept War's music in the limelight every summer.
Well, it's when you think about people like George Lopez, who keeps it going. There's so many people like George Lopez who take Lowrider and make it their theme, you know, and they possess that song. That is their song and no one else's. So there's a lot of competition out there with George Lopez as far as like Cheech and Chong, you know, that's their theme song. So everyone is like saying, no, that's my theme song. I had it first. No, I got it. But mine's played the longest or something. So it's an honor that such a song that we never realized would even get to a DJ back in the day in order to play it. And, you know, but hey, I was proven wrong.
It was just another song at the time.
Yeah, for us, because our style, not thinking any of it would ever get on the radio because our music was so uniquely different. You know, so we never thought it would.
Never try to conform to radio, never.
No, still don't.
Always try and go your heart, heart and soul.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, talk about the collaboration with the USC Marching Band. That must have been incredible to have the Trojan spirit involved. Talk about the idea behind that.
Well, that was basically an LA thing, just to bring in the elements of LA, like the marching band and Cheech and Chong on our single, you know, and as a matter of fact, it all started when we did the single off of this album, Evolutionary, which is called That LA Sunshine.
Yes.
And so that particular song, we collaborated with Cheech and Chong, and who else is on there? Some young guys singing, doing a rap on it. Well, one guy, Fats, he calls himself. And then we also have, well, also on the album we have Tower Power, we have Joe Walsh, you know, so it's just a combination of people making their cameo appearances for us, and because they were a part of the music scene as well, you know, back in the day. So we're just coming together, just trying to reinvent ourselves, you know, as friends as we were back in the day, you know. And believe me, so many of us has fallen to grace. Believe me, it's amazing that we can still get together and laugh about all this, all the times we had back in the past. So having this album out is one of those moments. Any group of our peers put out an album, then they're really putting out an album for all the other entertainers. It's not for the public, because I mean, our age, I don't expect them to play it on the radio, you know.
Right.
I mean, maybe it'll get generated out there, and you know, in the
there's other ways to hear it now.
Exactly, but as far as becoming a Kiss 102.7 hit, no way. But that's okay, as long as it gets generated out there.
Yeah.
You know, and people are aware it's there. But like I said, it's basically for other entertainers.
Sure.
So they can know that we're all still alive. We can still come together and jam together.
Hip hop that, you know, once people thought was a fad, it's going to be here for a little minute, and people were kind of intimidated that people were sampling little pieces of music, and now 25, 30 years on, hip-hop is still part of the culture and still keeps war alive through the tributes and the sampling. What was your feeling when you heard people, you know, utilize or pay tribute to what you did?
Oh, sure. I was honored. I said, wow, some more people doing our music. I mean, it all started when jazz was pretty much jazz entertainers were covering our music, and and then a lot of other bands, a lot of Latin bands was covering our music, and then the hip hop community started. They really covered our music all the way to entertainers like Janet Jackson, and I mean the list goes on. And I'm honored, but in the hip hop world, I have to say, why I'm even more honored is because, to me, rap, hip hop is all another art form of blues.
Yeah.
You know, when blues came into, you know, out of the gospel music and out of whatever, and then you got the country music, and it's all basically the same. But it's country music, blues, all came out with people definitely being able to express their emotions of where they're living, and they want to get out of somewhere where they're stuck, out of their box, you know, and they're on the streets and having a hardship and having a hard time, you know, but yet at the same time they love where they are, although it's the ghetto, but they love it, and because that's all they know, you know. So they, just like hip hop, they were able to create a tool to be able to express it to the streets, you know. Blues, hip hop, same thing.
What advice do you give to that young musician, that young singer, that young band today to really find their own style, their own voice?
Just to keep at it, keep doing what you're doing if you love it, and if it's really coming from your heart, it'll be an automatic thing. It's don't force anything. If it ain't fitting, let it go, or go to something else. But if you're going to get into this type of business, the entertainment business, you got to be serious, and you got